Recently, very important news were published about Hubble telescope and a lot of news. The first news with us says, Hubble glimpses a star-forming factory. The celestial object showcased in this image from ESA Hubble Space Telescope is the spiral galaxy UGC 9684, which lies around 240 million light-years from Earth in the constellation Bootes. This image shows an impressive example of several classic galactic features, including a clear bar in the galaxy's center and a halo surrounding its disk. The data for this Hubble image came from a study of Type II supernova host galaxies. These cataclysmic stellar explosions take place throughout the universe and are of great interest to astronomers, so automated surveys scan the night sky and attempt to catch sight of them. The supernova which brought UGC 9684 to Hubble's attention occurred in 2020. It has since faded from view and is not visible in this image, which was taken in 2023. Remarkably, the 2020 supernova isn't the only one that astronomers have seen in this galaxy. UGC 9684 has hosted 4 supernova-like events since 2006, putting it up there with the most active supernova-producing galaxies. It turns out that UGC 9684 is a quite active star-forming galaxy, calculated as producing 1 solar mass worth of stars every few years. The most massive of these stars are short-lived, a few million years, and end their days as supernova explosions. This high level of star formation makes UGC 9684 a veritable supernova factory and a galaxy to watch for astronomers hoping to examine these exceptional events. NASA Glenn looking to lease facilities. As NASA advances its aviation and spaceflight missions, its facilities and infrastructure need to evolve along with them. NASA centers, including Glenn Research Center in Cleveland, must find ways to reduce the cost of maintaining assets they aren't currently using. Toward this goal, NASA Glenn is offering opportunities to lease assets it no longer uses. These enhanced use lease agreements will allow space, aeronautics, and other related industry to use Glenn land and facilities in direct support of NASA's mission. It's an arrangement that could bring some of the best minds in aerospace closer together, spurring innovation. Carlos Flores, NASA Glenn's strategic planning branch chief, said, "We want to strategically align Glenn's unique aircraft and spacecraft testing assets with the aviation industry and emerging commercial market. Our hope is to expand partnerships, accelerate innovation, and create regional economic opportunities." Flores said there are many advantages for commercial entities to lease NASA facilities. These partners will have more access to resources, such as other facilities and technical expertise, than those outside the gate. Once a company or a university gets a foot in the door, it is very possible they will discover other assets and expertise they can leverage. In March, Glenn released an announcement for proposal to the public soliciting offers for the use of the cryogenics components laboratory at NASA's Neil Armstrong Test Facility in Sandusky. An AFP is expected for the altitude combustion stand in Cleveland within a couple of months. Glenn and other NASA centers continually work to align their facilities and infrastructure with the agency master plan, which serves as a roadmap for future development and redevelopment of agency property. To align with the agency master plan, Glenn must reduce its maintenance gap, which is the amount of property owned versus the amount of property the center can afford to maintain. The maintenance gap is one of the realities we face in an environment of current and future budget constraints. While demolition is sometimes the easiest way to reduce square footage and maintenance costs, leasing can be a viable option for buildings that do not fit the demolition criteria. The ULS will not only reduce the maintenance gap and the square footage we are responsible to maintain, but they will also enable us to create strategic partnerships and utilize revenue from the base rent for repairs to infrastructure. NASA's new mobile launcher stacks up for future Artemis missions. The foundation is set at NASA's Kennedy Space Center in Florida for launching crewed missions aboard the agency's larger and more powerful SLS Block 1 rocket in support of Artemis 5 and future missions. On May 9, 2024, teams with NASA's Exploration Ground Systems program and contractor Bechtel National Inc. transferred the primary base structure of the mobile launcher 2 to its permanent mount mechanisms using the Spaceport's Beast Mode transporter. An Quinn, program manager for NASA's EGS program, said, "Seeing Mobile Launcher 2 take shape has been incredible. Anytime we can see the manifestation of our work into physical hardware means a lot to the EGS team. It is also inspiring for the future of Artemis, with each bolt and truss put in place signifying the next phase of humanity's return to the moon." Teams at Bechtel fabricated temporary pedestals 8 feet off the ground, facilitating a much more efficient and safer initial steel build process by sitting lower to the ground. These extremely large steel truss subassemblies, some weighing over 100,000 pounds each, sat on temporary bases. Once the entire 2.6 million pound skeleton of the base was fully torqued and welded, teams used a specialized heavy-duty jacking system to raise the base to allow sufficient space for the spaceport's crawler to be situated underneath the structure ahead of repositioning. 4 self-propelled modular transporters were driven underneath the sides of the steel assembly and then lowered the base onto 8 surrounding jacks. Once secured, teams removed the transporters and used jacks to raise the base 18 feet to allow for crawler access underneath the structure. The crawler was then positioned under the new base skeleton, raised the structure a few inches higher, and repositioned it about 200 feet to the 6 permanent pedestals, called mount mechanisms, completing the jack inset operation. Now poised atop the new launch mount mechanisms at its park site near the spaceport's vehicle assembly building, teams will begin installing critical piping and electrical equipment inside the base. The mobile launcher will remain at the park site throughout the build and commissioning phases of the project. The mobile launcher serves as the primary interface between the ground launch systems SLS rocket and Orion spacecraft that will launch the SLS Block 1 rocket with its enhanced upper stage to the Moon, allowing the agency to send astronauts and heavier cargo into lunar orbit than its predecessor SLS Block 1. With Artemis, NASA will land the first woman, first person of color, and its first international partner astronaut on the lunar surface, and establish long-term exploration for scientific discovery and to prepare for human missions to Mars. We reached the south side of Pinnacle Ridge. What's next? Abigail Freeman, planetary geologist at NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory, said. We planned quite a drive on Wednesday with lots of twists and turns over very bumpy terrain, so the team was delighted to learn everything completed as planned when we received our downlink at 4 a.m. Pacific time this morning. The successful drive means Curiosity is now parked on the south side of Pinnacle Ridge, the final area of Upper Geddes Valley's ridge that we plan to investigate before we cross Geddes Valley's channel. We visited the north side of Pinnacle Ridge last week and collected all sorts of data that tell us a lot about the composition and textures of the rocks that form the ridge. We had a big decision to make this morning. Now that we can see the south side of Pinnacle Ridge is traversable, should we drive onto it to get additional contact science data on the Geddes Valley's ridge rocks, or should we continue to drive along Geddes Valley's channel towards our planned channel crossing spot? Driving onto Pinnacle Ridge at this location could give us an opportunity to learn more about the materials that make up the ridge and the role of water in this area. But it could also take several sols and not tell us much more than what we already learned from our investigation on the north face of Pinnacle Ridge. My role today was long-term planner, which meant I had to lead the team's discussion to talk through the pros and cons of this decision and help the group come to a consensus. We talked a lot about how the rocks we could see from our current location compared with the rocks we already investigated on the north side, and ultimately the 25 scientists who were on the tactical operations planning group today came to a consensus decision that we'd rather move on than spend more time here. Abigail Freeman said, I really love operations days like today. We came in this morning with a completely new Martian vista to admire, and then we had to work together as a team to make a quick decision about what to do next. I think the pace of this decision-making, the ability to talk through tough choices with a group of really smart, passionate people, and the realization that these decisions are guiding the course of a 1-ton vehicle on an entirely different planet is one of the coolest ways to spend a morning. Thank you very much for watching. Goodbye.